I know for some Persona fans this is a controversial thing to say, but I actually really liked the idea behind Persona 3 Reload recasting the main characters for the English version, and I'm looking forward to Persona 4 Revival doing the same thing. For me, the point of a remake is to give returning players a newer, more unique experience, and as far as I'm concerned, that includes voice acting. In the same way that I don't expect to see the same Poirot in every retelling of Death on the Nile, I like seeing new actors bring their own visions and ideas to the characters in new retellings of a familiar story. But another thing Reload did that I liked a lot was bringing back the old cast for smaller side roles. It was a nice way to acknowledge and respect their contributions to the past games, and in some instances felt like a meaningful way to pass the torch, especially in instances where the new actors directly interacted with the old actors in a meaningful way. Like having Liam O'Brien now voicing Officer Kurosawa, who frequently interacts with Akihiko, now played by Alejandro Saab. The two form a nice rapport, especially in the linked episodes where it uses the new story to better foreshadow Akihiko's future desire to become a cop that we get to see more of in the anime Persona Trinity Soul or the Arena games. And speaking of Arena, another great example is having Ken's new voice actor, Justine Lee, talk to this unnamed classmate in his linked episode. This kid establishes that Ken plays soccer, a fact we primarily learned in Persona 4 Arena Ultimax, where Ken was played for the first time by Cindy Robinson, the voice actor of Labris. I like Labris, so naturally it was a fun and clever little bit to have this unnamed classmate played by Cindy Robinson. Or Michelle Ruff, now playing the antique shop owner. I don't have anything extra to add here, I just always thought this character was cool and hot and should have had a name, and Michelle Ruff voicing a character automatically makes them even hotter. So then I got to thinking, what characters from Persona 4 would benefit from being voiced by the original cast? Or, I guess I should say, former actors, because by the end of the Persona 4 games, 5 out of the 8 original investigation team had been recast. My main goal here is to try and pick characters sort of in the same way Reload did, and by that I mean avoiding social links and particularly big plot-relevant characters. That said, please consider this your spoiler warning for Persona 4 in general, so if you're waiting for Revival, maybe don't watch this video. Or just go play Golden and then come back, you've clearly got plenty of time before the remake comes out. It's been 9 months since the game was announced and we still don't even have a proper trailer. Naturally, the first character we want to look at is our protagonist, Yu Narukami, who was played by Johnny Young Bosch, who also played Toru Adachi. Now, evoker to my head, this may have been the hardest one for me, because if I had to pick one character to not get recast at all in Revival, it'd probably be Adachi. In the same way that Reload kept Tara Platt as Elizabeth, Johnny did such a good job with this character that it is hard to imagine anyone else doing them justice. But that's against the rules that I made up. So if I had to pick a character for Johnny to voice in Reload, I'm actually going to go with Mitsuo Kubo, the false culprit from around the midpoint of the game. Not only do I think, or at least hope, Mitsuo will be expanded upon in Revival, similar to Takaya's linked episode from Reload, there is a level of deliciousness in my eyes in having the former protagonist's actor now playing a character like Kubo, a cast-aside nobody who suffers from delusions of being the main character. Whether we're battling to Shin Mitsuo Tensei or Revolution's Mitsuo, I think Johnny could give us a truly fantastic take on a mostly forgotten character. And speaking of differences between geographic locations, this video is sponsored by ExpressVPN. A virtual private network allows you to connect to the internet as if you're in another country, and it is the best way to bypass geo-restrictions. Some of you may remember a few years ago, I spent a year in Beijing, and it was specifically thanks to ExpressVPN that I was still able to upload videos at all that year by connecting outside of what is affectionately called the Great Firewall of China. With just a few clicks, it's like you're immediately in another country. VPNs not only help protect your privacy, but they allow you to watch shows and movies through streaming services in other countries. Have a show or movie that's not available on Netflix in the States? Well, with just a few simple clicks, now you're in Europe and maybe they have it. A VPN also helps shield your online privacy by masking your IP address, and it's an invaluable tool for any computer or mobile device. Find out how you can get up to 4 extra months by clicking the link in the description box below or scanning the QR code. Thanks again to ExpressVPN for their support, and let's get back to the video. Next up is Yosuke Hanamura, and this one may be a bit odd to talk about because for most of us, Yuri Lowenthal confirming that he's not voicing Yosuke was literally how we learned that this remake was happening. Like, he started talking about it before that first teaser was even shown. Now, look, I love Yuri Lowenthal as a voice actor. He was a phenomenal Yosuke. He was one of the most memorable characters in Saints Row 2, and it was super cool seeing him and his wife, Tara Platt, the original Mitsuru Kirijo, work side by side on DuckTales.
The new one's a traitor, but I stopped him out of loyalty, because I love you, doofus.
You're pathetic.
Yuri is great, and he clearly has a lot of love and passion for Yosuke as a character, and I respect the heck out of that. So naturally, I think the best character for Yuri to play in Revival is none other than the homeroom teacher, Kinshiro Muraoka. What better way for Yuri to channel his feelings of not playing Yosuke anymore than by playing a character who gets to spend most of his screen time yelling at children? Yuri could channel so much into King Moron as a character, and I am absolutely here for that. Now, our next two actors I'm just going to kind of talk about together because of the parallels I think we can get here. Chie Satonaka and Yukiko Amagi are two bestest friends. They're basically the only characters that were implied to have any sort of meaningful relationship prior to the start of the story, and as such, their previous voice actors, Erin Fitzgerald and Amanda Winn Lee, play off of each other pretty nicely, especially in the later games where Erin was actually Chie from the start. So I think a good recast for these two actors would actually be to set them up as another pair of surprisingly good friends that we meet in Persona 4, Hanako Otani and Noriko Kashiwagi. Admittedly, this one just started with me thinking that Amanda would be a great Kashiwagi, but I think Erin's take on Hanako also has a lot of potential, and naturally I'd like to see the chemistry those two have when they're playing a very different type of best buds. This next choice is probably the easiest one I had to make, and if I'm being honest, it's the one that more or less sparked the entire idea for this video. Whichever Kanji Tatsumi voice actor they decide to bring back, whether it's Troy Baker or Matthew Mercer, has to play Master Daidara. Both actors are great at playing gruff but lovable characters, and Daidara is a shopkeeper that we interact with a surprising amount throughout the game. Aside from just buying equipment from him, he has a few side quests that he gives the player, he plays parts in both Marie and Hisana Kuroda's social links, and Revival could even take it one step further and establish his fireworks making gig from the anime. He's an important enough character that him having a lovingly familiar voice, especially from a previous kanji, would be a real treat. Not to downplay the schedules of any of the other actors, but my general understanding is that Laura Bailey is very, very busy. So I tried to think of a character for whom she could probably record all of her lines in less time than it would take for me to finish this section talking about it, while still allowing her to feel important to the plot and remain a good example of, "Aw man, it's Rosette" for the fans. Naturally, my mind went to Mayumi Yamano, the TV announcer whose sudden and shocking death basically kickstarts one of the major plot points of Persona 4 in the murder mystery itself. She basically only has 7 lines in a single flashback scene, but I like the idea of Rise Kujikawa's voice actor not only returning, but playing a character that's still connected to show business in some way and feels like a natural choice. The original Mayumi was actually voiced by someone I'm going to talk about later in this video, but I'm not going to let that stop me. After all, Kurosawa was originally voiced by an OG P3 cast member too, but they still recast him as one that felt more fitting in connection to the character they originally played. And speaking of characters connected to show business, this brings me to Teddy and how we can recast Sam Riegel. Despite the character not having too much presence in Persona 4, mainly getting expanded upon in Dancing All Night, I'd love to see Sam take on the role of Minoru Inoue, Riset's former manager who tries to convince you to convince Rise to get her back into the idol world. He does have a few lines in Rise's social link which will presumably be fully voiced in Revival, so I like the idea of hearing him here. Inoue may seem like a bizarre choice for Teddy, but what can I say? I appreciate the idea of recasting our front-facing bear mascot to play somebody else who has experience working on the backside of the TV. And that brings me to Naoto Shirogane, who has actually had a few different voice actors, but I'm specifically going to focus on Valerie Arem, who was not only the most recent Naoto, but played the character in as many titles as the original actor, and was, in my opinion, actually the best Naoto. Valerie actually played Mayumi Yamano in the original Persona 4, which I mentioned earlier, but I have a very different character in mind for her this time. And that character is Kanji's mom. Why? Because I think it's funny. Kanji has a big crush on Naoto, so Kanji's mom having Naoto's old voice feels weirdly fitting with Persona's emphasis on psychology. Yes, many Persona characters are young at heart, but a little Freudian slip here and there can make for some quality entertainment. Oh, did you think I was done? Nah, we got one more bonus character. Let's also talk about Marie's original voice actor, Eden Riegel. I know I said I didn't want to cast any previous actors as huge plot-relevant characters, but given Marie's connection to Izanagi, it would be so fitting and satisfying for her to take on that role. Failing that, I think she could also make for a pretty good Saki Konishi, essentially allowing her to still play a character whose fate winds up bringing the main characters into the mystery to begin with. Alrighty, and those are my personal picks for who I'd cast the previous Persona 4 actors as in Persona 4 Revival. What do you all think? Do you agree or disagree with any of my choices? Are there any characters that you think would be a better pick for an older cast member? Be sure to let me know all of your thoughts in the comments below, and please remember to comment or subscribe if you like what I'm doing. It really does help the channel out a lot. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care.